Hey there, you guys. So, yesterday we learned that we can classify animals in different ways in order to understand what groups they belong into. That helps to communicate about these animals better, or plants better, or protists, or fungi, or bacteria, whatever the living things it are. And today we're going to specifically talk about a group called vertebrates. And yesterday we learned about 3 groups of vertebrates. Today we're going to learn about the other 2. So there are 5 groups of vertebrates: mammals, birds, fish, amphibians, and reptiles. And what I want you to do today is look for what are the characteristics of vertebrates. So, for example, do they feed their young? What kind of skin covering do they have? Are they feathers? Are they fur? Are they cold-blooded or are they warm-blooded? Okay, different things like that. And then when you finish the reading today, there's going to be a table for you to fill in. That table is going to be the main source to study for when you take your test. Because remember, on your test, you're going to have to know the difference between different groups of organisms and explain their different characteristics. So I'm going to start reading. And remember, you're looking for characteristics of the 5 different vertebrate classes. Remember, a vertebrate is an animal that has a backbone. Okay, so it says, how do we classify vertebrates? The chordata is one phylum of animals. One subphylum of chordata is divided into 5 classes. Each class has its own features. Characteristics of animals. Animals have certain features that together make them different from other organisms. First, animals are multicellular. They are made of more than one cell. The bears shown on this page are made of trillions of cells. Second, animals cannot make their own food. In order to get energy, animals must eat other organisms. Third, animals can move on their own during part or all of their lives. Today, the animal kingdom is divided into more than 30 phyla. Only one phylum, the chordata, contains organisms that have spinal cords. One subphylum of this group contains animals with backbones that surround the spinal cord. And if you feel on the back of your back, that is your vertebra. Okay, so you are a vertebrate. It's a backbone. You have a backbone, and it protects your spinal cord. These animals are called vertebrates. Backbones protect a very important set of nerves that go to the brain. Bison and sheep are vertebrates. What other vertebrates do you know? This subphylum is divided into 5 classes. The classes are mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish. So let's talk about mammals, all right? Absolutely, you should know you are a mammal, okay? And so mammals, it says, one class of vertebrates is the mammals. All mammals share several characteristics. They breathe air with lungs and make milk for their young. Most mammals have hair or fur. Mammals are warm-blooded. That means they keep their body temperature nearly the same all the time. Young mammals are usually born looking very much like their parents. All life continues through different life cycles. A life cycle is a pattern of birth, growth, reproduction, and death. As they grow, animals develop and then reproduce. At the end of their cycle, animals die. Their offspring repeat the cycle. Something important I want to go back to is the difference between warm-blooded and cold-blooded. A lot of times, maybe you've got a mom or even your teacher, this girl right here, that is cold all of the time. I know there's a particular 4th grade teacher that always wears a sweater around, and you may say that you're cold-blooded. Well, actually, it just means you get cold-blooded is not something that humans can be. All right, all mammals are warm-blooded, meaning their temperature stays the same. We talked the other day in class about our temperature is supposed to be 98.6 degrees. And, our body helps to try to keep it at that by either sweating or getting goosebumps. All right, so cold-blooded animals, which we'll read about here in a little bit, are animals whose body temperature changes with their surroundings. And I think once you read about them, you'll understand, oh, I get why they're cold-blooded, and we are definitely not. We have to wear coats in the winter, and we put on shorts in the summer because our body temperature will not change with our surroundings. So we need to do things to help ourselves stay the temperature that feels comfortable. Okay. You may also look off on the side of the paragraphs that I just read, and you can see that there's a little table that will help you later when you're doing your assignment. It tells you that the body covering of a mammal is hair or fur. Of course, humans have hair. Think of a bear maybe would have fur. The body temperature is that they are warm-blooded, and they feed their young with mother's milk. All right, let's continue on. We're going to talk about reptiles now. Reptiles do not look much like mammals. How would you compare and contrast the two classes, reptiles and mammals? Reptiles are similar to mammals in many ways. Their lungs and stomachs are similar. Their heads have the same basic arrangement of eyes, nose, and mouth. Reptiles are different from mammals because reptiles do not have any hair or fur covering their bodies. Reptiles are cold-blooded. Unlike mammals, reptiles are cold-blooded. The temperature of cold-blooded animals will change as the temperature of the air or water changes. Their temperature will be higher when the air or water is warm or when they are in the sunlight. Life cycles of reptiles. The life cycle of a reptile is usually similar to that of a mammal. Young reptiles look very much like their parents, just as young mammals do. Unlike mammals, most reptiles lay eggs. Also, when young reptiles hatch from eggs, they are ready to live on their own. Lewis and Clark and their team describe many species of reptiles. These include the bull snake, the prairie rattlesnake, and the soft-shelled turtle. All right, let's go on to birds. Birds make up another class of vertebrate animals. Like mammals, birds are warm-blooded. They also have many organs such as eyes, tongues, and bones similar to those of mammals. What makes birds different from all other animals? It is not the ability to fly because many insects and bats can do that. Some birds do not fly at all. The special characteristic of birds is their feathers. Feathered wings help many birds soar with ease. Some bird wings are shaped much like airplane wings. The front edge of their wing is thick. The top surface curves to a thin back edge. While not all birds can fly, they all have beaks and they all lay hard-shelled eggs. The life cycle of birds. A bird's life cycle is very similar to reptiles' life cycle. One difference is that young birds need to be fed by their parents. Reptiles are born ready to find their own food. So far we've got birds and mammals that feed their young. Of course, mammals feed their young with the mother's milk, and birds do not do that. We know that reptiles do not feed their young. What we've also learned is that all three groups we've learned about so far, mammals, birds, and reptiles, have lungs to breathe. On the next page, it just shows you an amphibian life cycle, which is kind of neat to just look at. I'm sure that when you were younger, you probably studied the life cycle of a butterfly, okay? And so you know a little bit about life cycles. It starts off with an egg, and we're talking about a salamander here. And then it hatches as a larva on that second picture. And then in the third picture, the larva gets oxygen through gills that look like feathers on its head. Number 4 step, the salamander grows and develops. And finally, in step 5, the salamander is fully grown and they have lungs now so that they can breathe on land. All right, the next group we're going to read about is amphibians. And so that's who we were just reading about with the salamander and his life cycle. All right. It says that frogs, toads, and salamanders are amphibians. Amphibians are like reptiles in many ways. For instance, the shape of a salamander is very similar to the shape of a lizard. Amphibians are also similar to reptiles because they are cold-blooded. However, the soft, moist skin of amphibians is very different from the reptile scales. Amphibian skin can absorb water and oxygen. Life cycles of amphibians. Amphibians have a very different life cycle than that of other vertebrates. You are probably familiar with the stages of the life cycle of a frog. They hatch from eggs as tadpoles. Slowly the tadpoles grow legs and the tail gets shorter. Soon they develop lungs and stop getting oxygen through gills. Then they begin to live on land. As adults, frogs look nothing like they did when they were young. No other class of vertebrates changes so much during their lifetime. This kind of large change is known as metamorphosis. All right, guys, so a couple important things here. A lot of times people confuse reptiles and amphibians. They're probably the most confused group, okay? You have to keep in mind what their skin covering is like. And if you look at the table next to the amphibians paragraph, it says that they have soft skin. Remember, reptiles have scales. That's a lot different. When you think of something that's a slimy animal that's wet, usually you're probably thinking about an amphibian because reptiles feel very dry because of their scales. All right, reptiles are cold-blooded like amphibians, and neither one of them do feed their young. All right, so keep in mind that amphibians are very special because they start off with gills and they grow lungs. So when you're adding in how this animal breathes on the table on the last slide, you want to tell me that they begin with gills and then grow lungs as they get older, so then they can move to land. All right. Our next group is fish, and there's a fish to the left of the paragraph. And so when we're talking about the fish, maybe you want to look at the fish to see some of those features. It says some mammals live in the water. Some reptiles do too, but the only class of vertebrates made up of water-living animals is the class of fish. Some fish live in fresh water while others live in salt water. Fish get oxygen through gills located on each side of the head. Most fish have scales similar to a reptile. Fish also have a slimy coating that helps water flow past them. Many fish swim by bending their entire body. Others just move their fins. The life cycle of a fish is most like the life cycle of a reptile. Fish hatch from soft or jelly-coated eggs, and they can feed themselves right away. If you want to look at the table to the left, up a little bit from the fish, it says that their body covering is usually scales. Their body temperature is cold-blooded. So, I've always, when I was a kid, I always wondered, how are fish surviving in the lakes during the wintertime? Well, it's because they're cold-blooded. Their temperature is adapting to the temperature of the lake. So that's how they can survive. You would not survive in a lake for very long at all because you are warm-blooded and your body temperature cannot adapt to that change. Okay, fish do not feed their young. It'd be kind of funny if they did. It'd be kind of fun to watch, actually, but they do not. All right, so on the next page, we got a picture of some baby sea turtles showing that they hatch from eggs. Okay, it also shows a nice table there for the reptiles, their body covering again being scales. They're cold-blooded and they do not feed their young. There's a picture of some baby robins, and you can see, of course, they hatch from eggs as well. Just a reminder that birds have feathers, they are warm-blooded, and they do feed their young. Now, the last thing you're going to do is you're going to go to this table and you're going to fill in everything. There's one thing filled in for you because I don't believe it was mentioned anywhere in the reading. So birds have lungs. I don't know that that was mentioned in the reading. The other thing is, when you do the examples at the bottom, I asked you for 3 to 5 examples. If they're not mentioned in the reading, if there's not enough mentioned in the reading, then you can go ahead and Google those, or you can kind of just come up with some on your own. Just be careful. Remember, the difference between reptiles and amphibians is sometimes confused, so you want to make sure you have the right critters there. All right? So again, you're going to tell me at the top row, you're going to tell me what type of body covering do they have. So is their skin covered with feathers? Is it covered with scales? What is their skin covering? And the second row, you're going to tell me what is their body temperature. So basically, you're either going to put warm-blooded or cold-blooded in that. The third row is breathing. What do they breathe with? Do they breathe with lungs? Do they breathe with gills? Or are they the group that starts with gills and then grows lungs? And the fourth row, you're going to talk about, do they feed their young? So basically, this is a yes or no. If you want to be specific with mammals and tell me that they use their mother's milk to feed their young, that would be awesome. Okay. And then again, like I said, the examples are on the bottom row, 3 to 5. You don't have to go any further than that, even though I know some of you will want to. All right, you guys, I really hate that we're not learning this together today. I hope you have a great day. I look forward to seeing you soon. Please remember to do your best work and have a great day. Love you guys.